Greetings, fellow Mist Wanderers. My name is Steve Morgan and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. A few months ago I put out a video with my thoughts and predictions for the, at the time, upcoming Ravenloft novel Heir of Strahd, and since then it's come out. And I got it on my Kindle device. Let me just load it up, and you can see there the cover, and I can click and you can see more, and so on and so on and so on. Heir of Strahd. I planned to get this video out sooner. The time the video came out was just before I was going to go on holiday for a week. So I thought to myself, that's fine, I'll read it while I'm on holiday. And then I got so caught up and excited that I actually read it before going on holiday. So I ended up reading it twice. Once sort of for pleasure, and then the second time making notes. That's one of the reasons this has come out a few weeks after the novel has come out. Hopefully it's worth the wait. There's going to be two versions of this video. This is the first one, and this is what I call the spoiler light version. This is as little spoilers as possible. It's kind of, it might be tiny spoilers, like the stuff if you've read the blurb, the back of the book blurb, or the sort of description on Amazon or from wherever you buy it from. It says some stuff, and obviously you've probably seen the cover. Then I'm not going to go into detail of like what locations are included, what NPCs appear from Curse of Strahd, and things like that. There will be another video coming out soon, which I call my spoiler-filled version, which is going to be, I geek out and I talk about everything. And that assumes that you've read the book or don't care about spoilers or don't plan to read the book or whatever. So I was going to put them out both at the same time, but then I like the idea of having the spoiler-light version first and then the spoiler-filled version later. Just so that, because I was worried that putting them both out together, one might overshadow the other. And this way, this is kind of like, for those who want to see the spoiler-filled one, this is kind of like the teaser video, and then the spoiler-filled video, which is likely to be longer and can be more in-depth, will talk more. The spoiler-filled version, especially, not so much this one, will contain spoilers for Curse of Strahd, so just be aware of that. And there may also be some repetition if you watch both, but I'll talk about that more in the second video where that's more of an issue. One thing I should say as well is if you read the comments of this video, I can't be responsible for other people. People might leave, even though this is a spoiler light version of the video, people might leave spoilers in the comments. And unlike Reddit, where I think you can hide and tag spoilers, I don't know if you can do that on YouTube. So please be warned, if you are watching this video and then decide to look at the comments, that people might not be as careful with spoilers as I've been, just to warn you. I'd like to reiterate what I said in the Thoughts Predictions video and say that I've read a lot of the old Ravenloft novels. I've read some of the recent D&D novels, and I was kind of optimistic about this book, despite the cover and despite the feedback that I've read on the cover from lots of other people in the sort of Strahd Ravenloft community. Because I'd read the other D&D novels, the recent ones, I kind of thought, well, you know, maybe I was more willing to give it a chance than others, I don't know. But basically, I come at this as more of a Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft fan than necessarily a book reviewer. I don't review books. This isn't a book reviewing YouTube, as you know. I come at it from the other angle of like being a fan of Strahd and Ravenloft, and also thinking, what can you sort of use from Heir of Strahd in your Curse of Strahd game? That's going to be another video coming up later. In preparation for this video, I watched and listened to a number of interviews with the author, Delilah S. Dawson. One was a podcast, one I think was like on YouTube, and it was, I think she was at a conference, not a conference, a convention, book convention. If I can find them, I'll include links in the description in case you want to watch them. There's some interesting stuff. Her vision of the book echoes very closely to Tracy Hickman, who invented Strahd, and I just thought it was cool that something she said mirrored something he said, and so that kind of made me think, oh, okay, that's cool. For full transparency, there's no paid promotion here. I had to buy my own copy. I wasn't given a free copy. Funnily enough, I did request a free copy through the proper channel, supposedly emailed Random House, the publisher, and got completely ignored. Didn't even get a reply. Nothing arrived in the post. I did hear that a TikTok influencer who talks about Strahd did get a free copy. I'm not jealous. But no, seriously, if Random House or Wizards of the Coast are watching this, I'm putting out 4 videos just about this one novel alone. I've got over 1,000 subscribers now. My analytics tells me that only 25% of people who watch my videos are subscribers, so about 4,000-ish people who are huge Strahd and Ravenloft fans watch these videos, so please send me some stuff. It would be rather nice. Also, before I move on, one thing I spotted is there's also an audiobook, and if you're a Spotify Premium member like I am, it's available, I think, for free through Spotify Premium. I wasn't too keen on the narrator though, I will say. No offense to the narrator. I don't think her voice kind of matched the style, but I did only listen to the initial excerpt, so I might be wrong. So as mentioned, this is the spoiler light version. I'm not going to go into great detail. I'm going to tell you what I thought about the book and talk about stuff that's spoiler light, basically. I liked the book. I didn't love it. It's not my favourite book. I actually preferred The Road to Neverwinter, which is one of the Honor Among Thieves tie-in novels. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. So I'd probably give it a solid-ish 7 out of 10. I feel like, so that's like 3.5 stars out of 5. I feel like 4 might be too many, 3 might not, would be too low. Leaning maybe towards an 8. You know, a 7, 8 out of 10, a 3.5 to 4 out of 5. I like the writing style. I think I had a good mix of humour mixed in with the horror. Some of the characters, maybe not necessarily all of them, but some of the characters, I liked how they were characterised. This is a teeny tiny spoiler, which you'll discover literally as you start reading the first chapter, is each chapter is a different perspective of the sort of main party members from the cover. And I thought that worked well, and it's quite seamless how, you know, if one chapter ended on a cliffhanger and it moved perspective, and then it carried on with that character, I just thought that was cool. My favourite character, without a doubt, was Chivarian, the Drow Barbarian. He was so funny, just his perspective, his attitude in life, and I just thought he was great. I'd say second place goes to, I believe, probably pronounced Alishai, the Tiefling Paladin, and then Ka, the Kenku Cleric. Let's talk about that cover. What a controversy this cover was. It got a lot of people talking about it, unfortunately not in a very positive light. People thought it looked too 5th edition, it looked too cheery, it looked too happy, it looked just like someone's D&D game. I talk about this in my thoughts prediction videos. I wondered if this was kind of the adventurers fresh out off the boat, or fresh out of the mists, so to speak, and they've just arrived in Barovia and like, yeah, we're adventurers, we're cool, we can take on anything. And then, you know, the book itself would be darker, and I think it's fair enough for me to say that that was correct in the end. It's quite an interesting one with it being party focused, because old Ravenloft novels were often from like one person's perspective, and of course there were the 2 Heir of Strahd novels which are from Strahd's probably biased perspective, so the protagonist was the antagonist, I guess, if that makes sense. You know, the main character was the villain. But then also with other D&D novels recently, the Honor Among Thieves tie-in one, there were actually 2, but one of them was just one character's perspective, one of them was a group. Well, technically it was Edgin, but anyway. And then the fallbacks, I read the first one of those. I think the second one's out soon. Yeah, it's more party focused. It's got more of a PC feel. And I'd say that like something like Heir of Strahd especially almost feels like it was more for DMs only. Maybe I'm wrong saying that. But it feels like more of a DM's novel. The DM reads it to get a good perspective on Strahd and Barovia and to run Curse of Strahd. You know, and obviously fans of D&D and Ravenloft who are players who never DM can read it as well. But this one makes me think it's kind of intended for players or would-be players of Curse of Strahd and D&D, and it gives them the idea to think, hey, this is cool, now I want to play Curse of Strahd, maybe. An interesting point people made when I was reading feedback about the cover was that they thought that the party composition was odd. But then again, I think 3 of them are, at least from the 2014 rules, are the core races, species. You are human, elf, tiefling, and then there's the Kenku and a full orc rather than a half orc. You know, I don't think it's that weird. I don't know. I bet there's weirder D&D, like Curse of Strahd campaign PCs party mix out there. It's a horror novel, and I thought the sort of description of blood and gore was pretty good. It wasn't over the top, but it was more so than other recent D&D novels. It definitely felt more horror-like. I think the author definitely ticked that box. And I was going to say I'm a squeamish person. That's not necessarily true anymore. I definitely was when I was younger. But I read it and was like, yeah, this is gnarly kind of thing. What I liked as well, I'm going to be really careful about spoilers here, is that it felt very faithful, for the most part, to Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. Without giving spoilers away, one example is that they go to a location in Curse of Strahd, and it's as if the author, and I'm sure the author did this, looked at the map and was basically almost like, you go west and you appear here kind of thing. I thought that was really good. I could almost picture the map in my head as the characters were walking around and navigating the place, which I thought was really cool. I say mostly because there's a couple of things that would kind of bend the rules of the sort of Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft lore. Obviously I can't talk about that too much in this video because spoilers, but I'll talk about that in the spoiler-filled video. I like the intro and the sort of premise of how the characters arrive into Barovia. Again, can't really talk too much about that. All I'll say at this point is it's kind of different to, I guess, the hooks for Curse of Strahd that I imagine most DMs would use. Similar-ish but different. It kind of uses a hook, but there's different sort of circumstances of how they arrive is probably the best way to put it. I've got a lot of sections here that are just sort of grayed out saying spoiler, 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 spoiler. So I'm going to have to skip a lot of this and talk about it more in the spoiler-filled version. I think the spoiler-filled version at this rate is going to be twice the length of this video. I'm actually going to record it straight after this video as well, so I'll be wearing the same clothes and everything. And there's not much more I can talk about without giving away massive spoilers. I like the ending. I jumped straight now to the ending. I literally talked about the intro about 30 seconds ago. The ending I thought was a good horror ending, not necessarily a happy ending. I think I saw a criticism in a review saying that they didn't like the ending because it was too horrific. It's a horror movie. It's not going to have a happy hero's ending, the heroes return home. I felt like it reminded me of some of the endings from some of the old Ravenloft novels. I thought, and I'm sure that's kind of a testament to, that would be seen as a positive to the author, who I believe, I think she said she read things like Heir of Strahd and Vampire the Mists when researching this novel. Yeah, I just think it's kind of reminded me of the older novels, so that was good. I don't know if I'd want necessarily more adventures from this group. I feel like their story's being told. What would be cool if they do consider doing more Ravenloft novels is maybe other domains of dread, maybe other characters and Dark Lords. Things like that could be really cool. And a quick, almost like FAQ style insert, because I had somebody ask me this on Reddit, would it be suitable for current players or would players of Curse of Strahd? I would say no, because Curse of Strahd spoilers. It's a tricky one because they might read the novel and then I might want them to then play Curse of Strahd, so that's a good thing. But then they've had potentially some major spoilers for Curse of Strahd, so they're not going to Curse of Strahd not knowing much about it, which is a shame. So I would say if you've got a current player or would-be player who wants to read Heir of Strahd, tell them to hold off until after you've done Curse of Strahd. Might have forgotten to mention this earlier on in the video. In my thoughts and predictions video, I had 4 predictions of what would happen in the novel, potentially. This is a spoiler-light version of the video, so I'm still going to address them, but, you know, it's going to be yes-no answers. If one of the questions is, did any of the characters die, I'm going to have to say yes or no. So, another warning, if you don't want any spoilers going into the novel, you probably want to switch this off right now. In this version, I'm going to be really brief and vague, and in the spoiler-filled version that's coming hopefully in the following days or week or so, I will go into more detail about the details of the yes or the no. My first prediction was it would be grisly and unexpected. I'm happy to say this is a big yes. And it's not just me who said this. I think I've seen this in reviews and in comments online, especially compared to like the cover. So I think the subject matter in the book and the story and stuff is a lot more grisly. It's more horror. It feels more Ravenloft than, you know, Forgotten Realms or Honor Among Thieves or Fallbacks, for example. I think that's a big tick in the yes box. And my second prediction was, do any of the characters die? I warned you about spoilers, even in the spoiler-light version. Yes. One character does die, technically, sort of. It's not the way I envisaged, but I won't say any more because I don't want to spoil that. Do the characters leave changed at the end? Oh, this is a big yes. For the similar sort of thing that I just kind of talked about. You know, in the predictions video I said, oh, maybe they take a dark gift, maybe they change, they become evil, that kind of thing. I think that's a yes as well. And my fourth prediction, Strahd isn't defeated. Well, spoiler for Curse of Strahd as well here, yeah. But the wording I used is that maybe he is defeated, but he's not fully properly defeated. Again, that's a yes. Again, trying to keep the spoiler light, and I don't want to also include spoilers for Curse of Strahd just in case someone's watching this who then may want to play Curse of Strahd in the future. It's implied that he's not fully properly defeated. That's it for this one. Like I said, the spoiler-filled version will follow this one hopefully in a few days, a week or so. I'm starting to think now, was there any point putting out this video? Because I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. But I suppose for people who want to know more, like, is it a good book or not? And, you know, is it horror? And how is it as a D&D book? Hopefully it's still useful to people. I think the spoiler-filled version, when I can geek out about it properly and talk about it properly, will be more useful to people. And I plan to do another video, which will probably be the next Curse of Strahd video after this one and the spoiler-filled version, which is 5 things you can use in Curse of Strahd from Heir of Strahd as well. So things you can take from the novel, put in your Curse of Strahd campaign. So there'll be that coming up as well. And we'll leave it there, and I'll see you in a couple of days' time wearing exactly the same clothes. Thank you, Mr. Wanderers.